Doug, welcome back. We had a good exercise last week where you walked us through the assets and trying to discover where our sensitive data is, FCI and CUI. Before you showed up, we had no idea. So I feel a little more comfortable now. I know you did a little work on the diagram. So let's jump into it. And I'll let you know if I see anything that's inaccurate.
Absolutely. And that's the exact right approach here, right? So I've taken my notes from what I thought I heard your team say, and I've done a drawing from the way I believe your network is set up based on that. Now, it is entirely possible, in fact, likely, that some of these things are wrong or left out, and that's what this meeting is about. So here is network diagram that I produced based on our interview. I have highlighted a couple of areas where I still have some questions or I have some things I want to talk to you about how we can control it. So this is just your network as is, not necessarily the boundaries that we want to set up to be compliant and get through an assessment. We'll start off at the top. You've got MSP Tech Solutions right up here. And my question was, one, I believe I heard that MSP Tech Solutions is U.S. citizens only. That's great because I know your company has ITAR concerns.
Yes.
They also said they set up an Azure instance just to back up your information. So if they have to reconfigure a desktop or anything like that, they have their own backup server with your data in it, which could have CUI in it. My question is that a government tenant? And I think the answer is it needs to be. It needs to be an area that can pass a CMMC assessment for level 2. That's right here. CUI will flow down into those backups, most likely.
That's good insight, Doug, because I didn't consider the backups as having CUI, but now that opens my eyes to they do. And you're correct. We currently are backing up into Microsoft Azure Commercial. That's accurate.
Okay, so here's probably the most familiar area. This is your office. We haven't talked about what kind of technology you have in these places, but you have a firewall, you have a wireless access point that sets up a guest wireless LAN and an employee wireless LAN. And you also have virtual LANs, one for the tech staff here and one for everyone else. This is the no CUI area. Right. It is blocked by technology here. The firewall sets up a VLAN, and also administratively, these people know to use these laptops and these printers. The rest of these, all these dotted lines, maybe I should add a legend here. The dotted line box, that means there is CUI, and the green boxes, those mean no CUI. That's a simple little diagram here.
Yeah, that's simple to understand.
Feeling overwhelmed by the complex world of CMMC compliance? You're not alone. Small to mid-sized defense contractors are often swamped by the massive list of requirements, unsure of where to begin, lacking resources, and fearing assessment failure. But there's a solution. CMMC Proof, your compliance acceleration system. Unlike typical GRC tools, CMMC Proof breaks down the process into 5 easy-to-follow phases, guiding you through each step of your compliance journey. With everything you need in one place, from CMMC Level 1 and 2 requirements to evidence tracking and more, you'll never feel lost again. Get CMMC compliant faster and easier than ever before. Our system ensures nothing is missed, saving you time and effort. Built by CMMC certified assessors with decades of experience, CMMC Proof delivers real-world expertise and guidance you can trust. By the time your assessment comes, you won't just be ready, you'll be confident. Visit CMMCproof.com to start your 7-day free trial and accelerate your CMMC compliance today.
We've got your hard copy, your shredder, your removable storage. We'll need to put labels on these things, your tablets, all that stuff in there. And I think for the time being, the only thing we're trying to get out of that is this is part of your boundary. I have some questions. I believe these people need access to MS365. I know you have MS365 up here in the corner of GCC High for the people in this top box. Do you allow these people down here to have the same access? It's kind of expensive.
Oh, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that they've got MS365, which is not this guy. It's a different one.
Correct. The commercial version.
We could do a green box around here, which would be just plain old MS365 for the non-CUI stuff. it's going to look real similar, except it's just a different environment. Moving
And question
around.
for you, Doug.
Sure.
If you can, so you mentioned that the GCC High and the Commercial 365 are a different environment. Can you explain that to me a little more? I get confused with the GCC High.
Sure. Microsoft basically sets up an environment that looks extremely similar, but they guarantee that only U.S. citizens work on it. And they also guarantee that all the controls that you need, probably for FedRAMP as well, but certainly for CMMC L2, they guarantee all those are in place. And they've been, certified for that. For MS365, it doesn't cost them as much to not put all those controls in place. PowerPoint's the same, Excel's the same, it's just the stuff behind it. Patch management, the employees that manage the servers, that stuff is different.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so to the user, no different at all.
Got it.
All right. Let's see. You also have your employees. They have the BYOD phones and they have the Nova Shield issued phones. The phones, when we talked, would have access to the MS365 GCC High environment, being able to pull down email, share files, etc. And that's fine. However, that phone is going to have certain controls in place. Encryption, authentication, remote wipe ability, report it when it's stolen, things like that. These BYOD phones are sometimes, almost always, problematic to tell your employees that you're going to be able to remote wipe their phone, that no one from their family can touch their phone. You probably want those things out of the environment. Which means if you're using your own phone, that's fine to go to the green box up there. But if you're using the CUI stuff, no.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I can't imagine that conversation going well with my employees who are using BYOD. So I agree that we need to take those BYOD phones out of scope.
Yeah, so this will be my suggestion on that and the modification to the diagram. Let's move over to the home office right here. And in the home office, there's Nova Shield issued laptops. Those have Nova Shield controls. Those connect to the GCC High environment. All fine. Note that these employees will likely have a printer, which will create hard copy output, which needs to be stored in a locked file drawer or a locked cabinet. That's all fine. They will also be sharing the network with other home users. Now, the nice thing about that is you control your home router, and it is possible and actually very easy to set up 2 VLANs. So you could set it up just like it is in the office and say, this is my VLAN for the CUI, and you could set up a separate one for the home user, for the home laptop and the gaming system and the other stuff like that. As long as you have technology that is separating it, just like we do over here, right? This is the green area. In fact, actually, that whole guy right there is green. As it stands now, I suspect people at home are just using their laptop. They haven't configured their home router. So you can do one of 2 things. Restrict them from plugging in at home. One of 3 things. Set up a VPN so that even though they're on a shared network, and we'll get to this in a minute, just like you are in a coffee shop, you VPN first, that is secured, and then you make access. That's another choice. Or you just can't do this work at home. I don't recommend that last one, but I would recommend either creating a work from home configuration guide to walk people through how to set up their home routers, have your IT staff help them. And in that case, you could create an environment where they can share the LAN with other home users without VPNing. Before we consider that solution, though, let's talk about remote office. You go to an HQ or a coffee shop or a hotel, all of those things, you don't control the router, right? This router is controlled by the hotel or by Starbucks or someone completely different, and we don't have the choice of setting it up. So you either don't do CUI work there or you set up a VPN. Now, the VPN will encrypt the session. It will encrypt the session from here all the way across to here, and it doesn't matter if other people in the coffee shop are on the same network because it's secured at your computer. So I would suggest getting a VPN in place. We can talk about this thing in a second, but I just want to give you time to digest the recommendation for VPN.
Certainly, the VPN solution sounds very appealing compared to the other options that you mentioned. Now, let me ask you, if I don't do the VPN, and essentially I develop an administrative work from home policy, giving guidance for my employees, how to set up the virtual tunnels that you mentioned on their Wi-Fi router. During the actual assessment, Do you anticipate that the assessors are going to ask for any type of evidence pertaining to the work from home users?
I think they would, and I think they should. They'll do a representative sample. They'll probably interview one or two people about their home setup. If that person doesn't understand what they're talking about, they might say, well, let me talk to the IT person who set it up for you. Wouldn't be a bad idea to bring a screenshot of the multiple zones that have been set up, have that available as evidence. But yeah, I think depending on how many home users you have, if I was an assessor, I would, talk to 2 or 3 of them and just make sure they're aware of the policy and they're aware of how to protect it.
Okay. With that insight, I want to avoid going down that route. And I think we're going to invest in a VPN.
Okay, so if you do the VPN solution, we don't have to do that. And the remote office will be the same as being at home, right? The environment around your laptop is in scope. Like you have to protect your screen from others. You have to protect your laptop itself from others, but you're free to use a public Wi-Fi where you establish a VPN connection, which will then make the environment.
Problem solved. All right.
Okay. Up here, always like to make sure we talk about everything that's not in scope for the discussion. And, you connect to other things. You have Salesforce and ServiceNow and Benefits Portal and payroll services and all sorts of other cloud services that do not need CUI in it. Right. Always and everywhere, we want to make sure, like ServiceNow, or Salesforce, you're not appending diagrams to your statement of work, which could be considered CUI, into Salesforce. Salesforce is just, this agency wants to do work for us. This is how much we're going to charge them per hour. This is when the contract started. That's all fine. But we don't want to get any CUI in here. This is considered the no CUI cloud services. And I'll put it there for completeness.
Okay, so that cloud service is the no CUI. In your opinion, would those be out of scope for our level 2 assessment?
Absolutely. Yeah, those are out of scope.
Ooh, that's good to know. All right.
And that's everything that I see in terms of the network diagram. Certainly not everything, because we will be talking about policies and procedures. We'll be talking about what technical elements we use for the firewall and the WAP and the VPN and all sorts of other things. But we like to get this out there so we know what we're talking about. We've got the environment out.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly find it incredibly helpful to have this visual, because before we just kind of had things written down and in our heads, and it wasn't clear to me what we had in scope and out of scope. But this diagram makes it crystal clear for me.
Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of notes here for my cleanup. We're going VPN here and VPN here. That takes care of those questions. We're taking these phones out right there. So that sets up the green perimeter. These people do not have access to the GCC, and that sets up this green box up here. We need to ask MSP Tech about these 2 questions. So those remain open items. Other than that, I'll add a legend as well. But those are the corrections I'd like to make to the network diagram, and then call that a final draft. That's version 1.
I think we're in good shape. Now, I do have a question about going back to the mobile devices. I agree with your suggestion to take the BYOD out of scope. Just not worth the headache. Likely is going to cause issues for us. Now, in regards to the company issued cell phones, does encryption need to be installed on those cell phones? How does that work?
Yeah, the nice thing is these guys are doing your mobile device management. I believe I remember that from the conversation.
They're using Intune.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, Microsoft Intune. So we will talk about the settings you need in Intune, which will include encryption, authentication, remote wipe, and there may be a few others. But yes, we will have a minimum baseline set of standards we need to be applied to those phones. And the neat thing that Microsoft Intune can do for you is it can also check with those phones. It can give you a report saying, these are the 12 phones we have. All 12 are encrypted, all 12 authentication. They've all checked in this week. They've all been patched. It's some great information you can get out of Microsoft Intune through MSP Tech.
Okay. That's good to know. As far as the firewall, since we are a fully remote company, so that firewall that's going to be managing the VPN, is that going to be like an appliance, software firewall? What are your suggestions there?
We should probably talk with your tech solutions guys and talk about what they recommend and what features it has. I don't
Okay.
like to push a certain product. There's features and controls that I need in place. Also consider, I don't think you need a VPN to the office. We need a VPN to MS365 GCC High. There's
Okay.
nothing at the office for me to VPN into. There's no file server or anything like that. I'm
Right.
VPNing out to those cloud services.
All right. So in that case, without mentioning any vendors or anything, have you seen clients use like a software-based firewall that could accomplish that, or what are just types of technology you've seen?
Software based, like, a Microsoft Defender on your laptop is going to be adequate for the laptop, but I don't see that being set up for your office. Your office has to establish VLANs. So it would need to be a piece of hardware to do something like that.
Okay, understood.
Right. At
Got
a
it.
minimum, we'll need those connections in the back of it, right? Where is the VLAN 1 and VLAN 2?
Yeah, because I know my MSP tech solutions, they did mention Defender and using it in combination with like SentinelOne and ThreatLocker to establish those boundaries. But I wasn't sure if that's going to be sufficient, and especially for a VPN solution.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to take a look at them. Just my going in is if you're going to set up a VLAN 1 for the tech staff, that's right here, and a VLAN 2 for everyone else, for the admin staff, you're going to need a connector on the back of the box. Here's the VLAN 1 connector, here's the VLAN 2 connector, and software doesn't do that. So at the
it has
minimum, I'll be looking
limitations,
for
huh?
where are the connectors, right?
Where are the
These
connectors?
two things can be combined and
Okay.
frequently are.
Okay. All right. Now, I've been hearing a lot about FIPS and validated encryption modules. Can you translate that for me? I find it very confusing.
Sure. I just went to a white screen here so we can just talk more freely. Federal Information Processing Standard, when they're talking about FIPS, they're talking about 140-2. That is an encryption standard, which is an algorithm like advanced encryption standard, and it's usually a key length, like 256 bits, right? That's how it specifies something is strong enough. Now, if I'm a software vendor, I can take a look at this standard and I can say, I've designed this to meet. And another software vendor might design it to meet, and then they hire another company to come out and inspect it and say, oh, yes, you've designed it to meet, and I agree it actually meets. So that's the difference between validated and...
Yeah, FIPS validated, right, versus certified.
Okay.
The validated is going to be done by NIST, and that's going to be found in the NIST database. Only the NIST labs can validate the certificate modules.
I think of certified as people used to call this, I think it's just funny, emphatic vendor assertion, which is just a fancy way of saying the vendor says, I designed this to be AES 256.
Very
versus it was reviewed by someone who is certified by NIST to do the reviews.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in the cases where you have to have something encrypted because the CUI would be exposed if it wasn't, it needs to be FIPS validated.
Okay.
If you're also encrypting it in addition, like I can encrypt a file and then send it across an SSL link. If the SSL link is FIPS validated, it's okay that the file inside isn't even encrypted. So if I just use FIPS certified to encrypt that file, it's already been protected once.
Right.
We don't have to make sure it's validated twice.
So double encryption is not required.
Not required. Useful. You may find it a good practice, but we will be sure as we're moving forward with the evaluation, each requirement will make it real clear if it requires FIPS validated or FIPS certified. And there is a very big difference between the two.
Yes, big difference. Okay, thanks for breaking that down for me. Going back to some of the CUI assets of the firewall, do you believe that's going to be considered a CUI asset?
Yes. Everything inside the dotted line are in scope, and everything that's like an item is a CUI asset. So we can kind of just walk through that, right? The shredder, the hard copy, the file storage box, the removable hard drive, the tablet, etc., and the firewall, of course.
Okay. I hear that the DoD, when doing the asset categorization, They also consider people assets. Is that true?
Yep. So these guys right here. You also stated that contractors are treated the same as employees.
Correct.
So we don't have to distinguish between them. If your contractors didn't take training or didn't have to comply with the same acceptable use policy, that would be an issue. But we clarified that they're treated exactly as employees, all the same controls.
Okay. And when I was reading, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you're doing a great walk down of, hey, what kind of assets are there? There's your traditional assets, like, tablets, laptops, printers. There's the non-traditional people and places. So like your building here, your office building is an asset. The home office, don't think needs to be an asset because we're using VPN. Okay. We're not relying on any controls on the walls of the home to protect things. No one badges into your home. No one signs a visitor log to come into your home, those kind of things.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense.
These places are, in that sense.
Got it. And I know I was reading through, I believe it was the scoping guide, also the assessment guide, where it mentioned that for assets internal to our office, for example, or our local network, the encryption on our local network for CUI does not have to be FIPS validated or even encrypted on a local network.
Yeah, because it's not in danger of being viewed, right? Your administrative staff is not on the same VLAN and they're administratively not trying to get on the other one, and you're protecting the building. So for a couple of reasons, if that went across the city to a different location, that connection would.
Okay, that makes sense. And then lastly on this diagram, in regards to the SIM, do you know if CMMC level 2 requires us having like a 24/7 SOC or anything along those lines?
We'll take a look at the requirements. I believe the requirement is that the system is monitored and alerts are there. A lot of that you can do automatically. So if the system is up and running and it creates a log, which if it's an anomaly, it alerts someone who responds with a pager, that should be adequate. But we'll take a look at that and make sure it's okay. But I'm not aware of any requirements that it's 24/7.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well from a C3PO that I was speaking to about that, and it confirmed exactly what you just said. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to cover in this session, Doug?
That is everything I wanted to cover there. I can just kind of tease it up for what the next session would be. Yeah. So the next session is I'll come with the draft final, and that will be our go-to. And the next thing we want to do is start listing those assets. So we can see them, but we want to start listing them. What are the laptops? What are the printers? What are the firewalls? What's the VPN you're going to use? What are the phones? Let's just get that down. And when you go through the assessment, you'll want to be specific about that. Now, we don't have to yet. We can tee it up, but we'll want to know where is each of those assets, who owns it, what's the software, all those kind of stuff. So I would come with a spreadsheet. We want to populate all the rows, right? So what are all the different assets? And then we'll work on the columns. Who's the owner? What's the software patch level, et cetera.
Okay, so we do need that level of detail.
Yeah, you'll need that level of detail. Lots of formats you can have it in. I mean, if you're using ServiceNow, that is an inventory management system. So we'll want to bring back MSP Tech in and say, what do you use for asset inventory? And we don't have to recreate anything. We just want to make sure it's created somewhere.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to that next session. This was a very insightful session for me where now I have to go to our board and get some funding approval, but especially for that VPN, I think it's definitely going to be worth it.
Great. Yeah. And we'll share this initial draft out with your technologist, and let's make sure they say, yes, that is how you are connected. Because if that's not the case, we want to fix it because that's the foundation we're going to build on.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Doug.
All right. Thank you.
I'm glad I hired the right guy for the job. You literally wrote the book on it. So if you receive value from this episode, I invite you to subscribe and like so that you're the first to know when we release new episodes. Also check out cmmcproof.com to learn more about the arsenal of resources that we provide to equip you to conquer CMMC. We'll see you next time.